The house awaits. My name's Jasper. People call me, well, they call me a lot of things. Weird, odd, a bit much. I prefer observant, or maybe enthusiastically unconventional. While most kids my age are chasing likes or agonizing over who's dating who, I'm usually dissecting old clocks, cataloging forgotten insects, or, more recently, staring at the house at the end of Hemlock Lane. Everyone in town knows about the house. Old Man Hemlock built it back when things were simple, before the whispers started. Before the first family left in a hurry, before the next one lost their son, before the third was just gone. Now it sits, hunched and brooding, at the very edge of our ordinary street, a silent, rotting promise of everything macabre and misunderstood. Most people cross the street, clutch their bags tighter, and speed up their pace when they pass number 17 Hemlock. Not me. I feel a pull. A morbid fascination, yes, but also something else. Kinship, maybe? The house is an outcast, just like I feel sometimes. It stares with its dark, empty windows, daring you to look closer, to see what's truly inside. And I, of course, am an expert at looking closer. Tonight felt right. The air hung thick and still, smelling of damp earth and something vaguely metallic, like old blood or forgotten pennies. A sliver of moon hung low in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed like trapped spirits. The other houses on the street were dark, their windows like blind eyes. They were pretending the house didn't exist, hoping if they ignored it, it would go away. Pathetic. I slipped out my back door, an old brass flashlight heavy in my hand, though I doubted I'd use it much. Darkness, I find, is far more revealing. The walk down Hemlock Lane was surprisingly loud. Every crunch of gravel under my worn boots sounded like a gunshot in the suffocating silence. The streetlights seemed to dim as I got closer, their warm yellow lights struggling against the oppressive gloom emanating from the house. And then I was there, standing at the rusted, leaning gate. It looked like a skeletal hand reaching out of the overgrown yard. The house itself seemed to lean forward, the upper story sagging like a tired brow. Peeling gray paint hung in strips like dead skin. Shutters hung askew, banging faintly in a non-existent breeze. The porch sagged, the railing splintered. Even the air around it felt colder, thinner. A sign on the gate, barely legible under decades of grime, read, "Private property. Keep out." It was less a warning and more an invitation. The gate creaked open with a shriek that made the hairs on my arms stand up, not from fear, but from the sheer theatricality of it. The path was buried under weeds and fallen leaves, slippery with decay. As I walked, the silence returned, but it was a different kind of silence. Not an absence of sound, but a listening silence. Like the house was holding its breath, waiting. The porch steps groaned under my weight, each one complaining louder than the last. The front door was a massive thing of dark, weathered wood, some of the panels cracked. There was no doorknob, just a dark, empty hole where one should have been. As I reached for it, a faint, sickly sweet smell tickled my nose, like rotting flowers and something else, something musky and unpleasant. I pushed. The door didn't budge. I pushed harder. It resisted for a moment, then swung inward with a slow, agonizing groan, revealing not darkness, but a space even darker than the night outside. Colder, too. The air inside felt like lake water in winter. I stepped into the foyer. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight filtering through a cobweb-laden window on the landing above. Sheets draped furniture like pale ghosts. The air was thick with the smell of dust, mildew, and that unsettling sweet scent. "Hello," I whispered, my voice swallowed by the cavernous space. Only the silence answered, pressing in on me. I moved deeper inside. The living room was to my left. A rotting rug covered the floor, its pattern lost under grime. A grandfather clock stood in the corner, its hands stopped at 3:07. Why 3:07? A significant time? The thought sparked an excited shiver. I brushed a sheet off an armchair. The fabric was ripped and stained, but underneath, the dark wood frame was strangely smooth. As my fingers traced it, I felt a distinct cold spot, much colder than the surrounding air. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I froze. Had I made the sound? Or was it anyone home? I called out, a grin playing on my lips despite the creeping unease. I was here for this. I wanted the house to show me what it was saving for its quiet moments. Another creak, closer this time, followed by a faint thump, like something heavy being dragged. My heart hammered, but my feet carried me towards the stairs. They seemed steeper, more perilous than they had from below. Each step complained as I ascended, the wood groaning like old bones. The moonlight from the landing window cast long, skeletal shadows of the banister against the wall. The second-floor hallway was a long, dark tunnel. Doors lined either side, all closed. The silence here was louder, buzzing in my ears. The sweet, cloying smell was stronger now. It made my stomach churn. I reached the first door. My hand hovered over the knob. Before I could touch it, the door slammed shut further down the hall. Not a gentle closing, but a violent, shuddering crash. I jumped back, adrenaline flooding me. Okay, that was new. My grin had vanished, replaced by a tense curiosity. It wasn't just old settling sounds. Something in here was awake. All right? I murmured, my voice shaky but firm. Show me what you've got. I took a step towards the far end of the hall. As I did, all the other doors lining the hall began to rattle in their frames. Softly at first, then growing in intensity, a chorus of frantic, wooden palpitations. The air grew frigid, and the sweet smell intensified, becoming overpowering, nauseating. It felt like something was breathing it directly into my face. Then, from behind one of the rattling doors near me, came a sound. Not a creak or a thump, a whisper. So faint I almost missed it, but undeniably a sound. It was low, guttural, and sounded like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It wasn't words I could understand, but the tone was clear, malevolent, hungry. The rattling of the doors reached a frenzy. The whisper grew louder, joined by others, swirling around me, echoing from the walls. It wasn't just one whisper, but a terrible, overlapping cacophony of dry, scratching sounds. It felt like 1,000 angry insects trapped just behind the walls, trying to tell me something awful. And then I felt it, a cold touch on the back of my neck. I flinched, spinning around, but there was nothing there, just the empty, rattling hallway. But the cold lingered, a burning pinprick feeling that spread down my spine. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my curiosity. This wasn't just a spooky old house. This was active. This was aware. And it didn't want me here. The whispers reached a shriek. The door I was standing closest to, the one where the whisper had started, burst open. Not outward, but inward, revealing not a room, but absolute, inky blackness. A blackness deeper than any night I had ever seen. And from it spilled that sickeningly sweet smell, thicker than ever. I felt a sudden, irresistible pull, like a vacuum cleaner hose aimed directly at my chest. The air rushed out of my lungs. The whispers solidified into a single, deafening roar that wasn't sound, but pure, unadulterated terror filling my mind. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet. The pull intensified, dragging me towards the open, black maw of the doorway. I scrambled, hands clawing at the dusty floorboards. The house itself seemed to shake with silent laughter. With a desperate heave, I twisted away from the open door, scrambling on my hands and knees back towards the stairs. The whispers followed, pressing in on me, the cold radiating from the room behind me like heat from a furnace. I didn't look back. I scrabbled down the groaning stairs, taking 3 at a time, nearly falling. The sounds followed me, echoing in the stairwell, surrounding me. When my feet hit the foyer floor, I didn't pause. I sprinted for the front door, that dark opening that now seemed like a beacon of salvation. It was harder to push open from the inside. It felt heavy, as if something on the other side was leaning against it. I threw my shoulder into it, the wood screaming in protest. The whispers were right behind me now, a tangible presence, cold and furious. With a final, desperate shove, The door burst outward. I stumbled onto the porch, gasping for breath, the night air feeling clean and blessedly normal compared to the stench inside. I didn't stop. I ran across the sagging porch, down the weed-choked path, through the screaming gate. I didn't stop running until I was back on the main street, back under the struggling light of a streetlight, back where the other houses stood silent but felt, for the first time, safe. I leaned against a lamppost, my lungs burning, my heart hammering against my ribs fit to break. The sweet, decaying smell still clung to my clothes, and the cold spot on my neck felt like a brand. I looked back at number 17 Hemlock Lane. It stood as before, dark and silent, pretending innocence. But I knew better now. It wasn't just a house. It was a trap, a hungry, patient thing waiting at the end of the street. My eccentricity usually made me feel separate, an observer of the world's oddities. But standing there, under the weak streetlight, covered in dust and vibrating with residual terror, I felt something else. I felt marked, like I had peered into something that had peered back, and perhaps, just perhaps, it had seen something it liked. And it knew where to find me. The house at the end of Hemlock Lane was still there. But now it was also inside my head.